July 25th, 2013. From El Cajon, California, this is episode 25 of You Can Bet on That. Hi, everybody. Welcome to You Can Bet on That, a podcast for the recreational gambler. My name is Mark Duvall, and Dr. Mike, how are you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Not bad. So, this last week was opening day at Del Mar.
Yep.
We are fortunate in that we live close to a world-class racetrack, thoroughbred racetrack in Del Mar. And it opened last Wednesday. You know, it's funny because it crept up on me. It does every year.
Yeah. Well, as soon as 4th of July comes, you know it's going to open in a couple of weeks.
Well, you know, the thing is, at the fair, at the racetrack, there's a fairgrounds there. And it's where the county fair is every year. Right. And the fair goes to July 4th.
Right. And then it's 2 weeks of silence. And then the
Yeah, and I always forget that it's so soon after the fair.
It's right after. Right. And it's going to be longer next year. They've,
I guess the season's going to be longer?
Season's going to be longer because Hollywood Park closed down.
I think we're getting Hollywood Park's races. After that, yeah. But since Del Mar opened, we thought their season opened. We thought we'd talk about horse racing and wagering, specifically wagering. But I wanted to start by having you tell the greatest horse racing story I've ever heard.
Well, I don't know if it's the greatest horse racing story, but it is interesting. We were at the racetrack.
Yep.
And it just happened to be a day when they were honoring past jockeys, and they had a whole load of great jockeys retired, some recently retired, some very old, and they were parading them out onto the track. So they were coming down the tunnel where the horses usually leave the paddock and then walk out onto the track.
Yeah. And
we just happened we were going to cross there. There's where you can cross from one side to the other, a crosswalk. We just happened to be, the parade started and we were stopped right there at the crosswalk.
Yeah, it was you, me, and my wife.
Right, exactly. Yep. The three of us. And we're standing there, and, you can't go. All the guys said, okay, stop. Everyone stop. Let these jockeys go by.
Right.
And they're walking by, and there's Willie Shoemaker. Now, at this point, Willie Shoemaker had had a car accident.
Right. So Willie Shoemaker, one of maybe the greatest jockey of all time, but certainly one
jockey,
of the.
One of the greatest American jockeys.
And he had a long career, but he was in a single car crash, drunk driving, basically, and it basically paralyzed him, and he was in a wheelchair for the rest of his life.
Right. Yeah. Which I don't think it was that many years. I don't know exactly, but I mean, I think he had been long retired when he had the accident.
I believe you're right. Yeah.
So I don't know. It was the last little bit of his life anyway, was in a wheelchair. But anyway, here come the jockeys, and we're just standing there, and I'm right on the curb, and there really wasn't a curb so much as it was a flat area.
But you were close to where the jockeys kind of were going.
I was close, and we're all watching, and here they're parading him out, and then Willie Shoemaker runs over my foot in his wheelchair. It's just like boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, ow.
It's an honor, Mr. Shoemaker. Hey!
And he doesn't stop. He doesn't say anything. He had to know he ran over my foot. I mean, it was a big clunk,
We didn't have the reputation for being the greatest guy anyway.
No,
and he was probably pretty bitter when he was in the wheelchair, right?
Right. And I don't know, there was a lot going on, so maybe he didn't even think. But so that's my claim to fame. Willie Shoemaker ran over me.
That's so great that you could say that your whole life. Right. Willie Shoemaker, greatest jockey who ever lived, ran over my foot. He'll never wash that foot again.
Right. It's never been the same.
So we're going to talk about race wagering on this episode. We're not going to talk about handicapping because neither of us knows much about handicapping at all.
Well, who does? I mean,
people claim they do, yeah. And
I don't know if you saw this, but just as an aside here, I guess Bob Ike, who's a handicapper at Del Mar, he always has Bob's picks and stuff.
Right, that they sell out at the front of the racetrack. You'll see a lot of times handicappers will try to sell you their picks for the day, when
right.
How good are their picks? Why don't they just bet on them? Who knows? But
the other day it was pretty good. He went 9 for 9.
Really?
Yeah, they had an article in the paper. He picked all the winners.
Wow.
He had every winner in every race.
Wow.
That is, talk about good.
Yeah, that's incredible.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
But usually you get those and you see, they have 1 or 2 winners. Right. And it's usually the 1 or 2 that are super favored.
Right.
So.
Well, I'll be interested. We'll talk about the pick 6 here in a minute. If he really picked all 9,
right.
I wonder if a lot of people won the pick 6 that day.
It could have. I didn't read the whole article. I was busy and I glanced over it. But they had a big picture of him smiling.
Yeah,
Bob's good.
Yeah. I read a book by Andrew Beyer, who is a very well-known expert on horse racing. He developed this speed figure stat. It's called Beyer's speed figure. And I read his book years ago. Our friend Mike James and we got the book and we read it. Mm-hmm. But and this was kind of before everybody had a home computer and the internet and everything. So it was kind of an interesting read. He had come up with this speed figure, and it was a good way of indicating whether a horse would win or not. It's a pretty well-known stat now. In fact, the Racing Form actually prints the speed figures for them in there. Right. So we never really took it that far. I never really learned all that much about it. So all we're going to talk about here is just the different kind of wagers you can make, and which horses you pick, that's going to be up to you. But let's start with the basics. Oh, I wanted to say also, this applies to American racetracks, a lot in, say, Mexico, some other countries, and it also applies to dog racing. All these bets you'll see at a dog racetrack too.
What about highlighting?
Well, highlight is a completely different sport.
Yeah, I guess they don't. I guess the wagering on highlight is different.
It'd be similar, but it's not a race, right?
Yeah. Is it parimutuel wagering though?
I'm pretty sure it's parimutuel, and we'll talk about what parimutuel means here too in a few minutes.
We've got a few good dog racing stories.
Isn't
too.
that funny? Yeah.
We have time. We might want to.
We used to, it's funny. We used to go down to Tijuana and go to the dog races down there at Agua Caliente. I would never do it now.
Oh, it's way too risky now.
Yeah.
It was pretty safe back then.
Pretty safe, I guess.
We never had a problem.
No, we never had a problem.
We'd get a cab from the border and go to the racetrack and bet on the dogs. And you weren't there the one time they had a festival.
Right, I didn't go with you guys.
Yeah, Paul and I went, and a couple other guys, and we just happened to go that night. It was a Saturday night, and we lucked into it. But there was some festival, some holiday, some Hispanic holiday, and anyway, we had heard about this, and we always thought it was a myth, but it was true. They actually put small monkeys on the back of the dogs.
Oh my God.
And raced them around the track like little jockeys. And they had they didn't really have saddles, but they were kind of tied to the back of the dog. And it was hilarious because the dogs were laboring.
It's awful. I can't even, why am I laughing? It's terrible. That's terrible.
Well, the rabbit takes off and the dogs are trying to chase that rabbit. They just think it's a race, but that monkey, even when they were little, it's a lot of weight on their back. God. And some of the monkeys were falling off.
It's
and
terrible.
The dog was dragging them. It was absolutely terrible. But I'll tell you what, I'll never forget that as long as I live. It was an amazing sight.
I guess I'm glad I wasn't there. It does sound like it's a made up story. Oh, they put monkeys on.
Well, we had heard about that and we thought, okay, that's just, who would do that?
Oh my gosh.
We were actually there and saw it. They had camel races too around the track. Really? And they had a few other things. And there were a ton of people there, a lot of kids. It was a big deal.
Another reason I can just imagine, I'm not sure how the dogs are treated in America, let alone Mexico. I cringe to think how the dogs are treated down there, to be honest with you.
They're in a street taco if they lose to the races.
God. All right. Send your email directly to Dr. Mike this week. Well, anyway, yeah. So this wagering applies to dog races. Last time I was dog races, it was in Arizona. I assume they still have it there.
Yeah, I think they do.
Yeah. So I hope they're treated. But, see, my wife, I know we're getting off topic here, but my wife volunteers at an animal shelter.
Yeah.
Right. So we're very aware of, the treatment of,
abuse,
and dogs especially, right?
Yeah. Well, we have 3 dogs, so,
those greyhounds they're such great dogs too. They're fast. That's why they run them. But, they are such great pets to have too.
Well, getting here, I'll get us back on topic a little bit.
All right.
This is kind of what's happening in America with horse racing, too. Because there's a lot of groups out there who think that the horses aren't treated as nicely as they should be, let's say. And when they do lose or when they have problems, and there's a new track, the poly tracks, so it's not grass or dirt anymore. It's a synthetic material. And some people say that, that's ruining horses. And so a lot of them get put to sleep because of that.
Yeah.
So, I wonder if horse racing and dog racing will eventually, be a dying game, just like
it might be. I can't say that it's dying now because they still get huge attendance.
But they're closing tracks down.
Yeah. And I'll tell you too, it is bad if you've ever been to a racetrack where you've seen a horse stumble.
Oh, it's terrible.
Awful.
It's terrible.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. I mean, it's terrible for the horse. It's dangerous for the jockey too.
Yeah,
so.
I've seen it where the horse has fallen, hurt himself, and then they bring out this lift thing to cart him off. Yeah. I mean, it's like a big, big basket that they slide underneath the horse, and then a tractor drags it off the thing. It's terrible. Yeah.
Well, on that note, let's talk about how you can wager on this sport. Try to shift away from the dismal opening that we've had here, the depressing. All right, let's talk about wagering. The most common wagering at the horse racing are the win, place, and show bets. So you've got, anywhere from 5 to 12 horses in a race, and you can bet on any one of them to win. And the odds of them winning, the payoff that you'll win will depend on how good the horse is compared to the others in the. So there might be one horse that is going to get paid off at 2-to-1 odds, and another horse that's at 12-to-1 odds, right? So the chances of the 12-to-1, winning are
how are those
longer.
Odds established?
Okay, so we'll talk. Let's go over win, place, show, and then we'll talk about how those odds are established too. Let's talk about win, place, show. So if you bet on a horse to win, the horse has to come into first place, and you'll win your wager. And the minimum at horse tracks is typically $2, right? If you bet the horse to place, a place bet, you will win if the horse comes in first or second. And if you make a show bet, you will win if your horse comes in first, second, or third.
Right. Different amounts. You will win different amounts.
Different amounts. So if you bet him to win and he wins, you'll win more than if you bet the horse to show and he wins.
Right.
Right. But, of course, if the horse comes in third, you don't win anything if you bet him to win.
Right.
But you will win something if you bet him to show.
Right.
So those are the most common bets: win, place, show. Now, at the beginning of the racing day, they have odds. Well, it's before this, but when on the day, the horses, the odds that they put up on the board are established by odds makers, experts who determine, okay, this horse is probably an 8-to-1 underdog.
Usually employed by the track.
Right.
They have each track has their own odds makers.
Right. But as more people start wagering on horses, those odds change. And when all wagering is done, the odds may be quite a bit different than when they started. Say a horse started out at 8-to-1, and then, people just started betting on the horse like crazy for whatever reason. They heard something or whatever. And again, these figures are always what the win bet would pay. Right. So when you hear the horses at 8-to-1, that means that, you bet $2, you would win 16. You'd get your $2 back plus an additional 16, right? 8-to-1.
For a win.
Right. For a win, right.
Yeah, they usually don't list the place and show odds until after the race,
until you see what you get paid. Right. So a horse might start, the day 8-to-1, but then everybody's betting on it more than expected. And at the end, it's goes off at 4-to-1. Right. And here's how it significantly differs from sports betting, like betting on football and baseball and what have you. When you make a bet on a football game, a money line or a point spread, when you buy that ticket, you are locked in to your payout when you buy the ticket. So if you bet on the Chargers to win and they are 7-point favorites, so you've got them at -7 points, you buy the ticket, you've got them for -7 points. Even if that point spread changes up until game time, maybe it goes down to -5, at game time, you bought the ticket at -7, that's what you get.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
The difference is that with horse racing, how much money is bet on each horse in each betting category will determine the payout. So here's how it works. Let's say, just to make it simple, $10,000 was bet on the number 4 horse to win. All the wagers at the racetrack, it was $10,000. And then, $1 million total, or $100,000 total was bet on all horses to win.
Right.
Okay. So if number 4 wins, that everybody who bet part of that $10,000, they will split the total amount that was bet on all horses to win after the racetrack takes their cut. And I'm not sure what the cut is these days, 10%, 15%, something like that. But the idea is it's just a pool is generated for every type of bet. A separate pool for the win bet, a separate pool for the place bet, separate pool for the show bet, and then all the winning wagers split that pool evenly based on how much it was wagered.
So the interesting thing about that is, from what I can gather here, is that theoretically, you could bet a horse to show, and the horse could win. You might make more money betting it to show than if you had bet it to win, depending on the pool.
I have not seen that, but I have seen a case where a show bet paid better than a place bet.
Yeah. Oh, you see that regularly.
You do see that. So what we're talking about, usually when there's a winning horse, if you're just getting the results for a horse race and they say, well, the number 4 horse won and paid $820, $430, and $210. Those are terrible examples, but what they're listing is they're listing the win bet payoff, the place bet payoff, and the show bet payoff when they do that. And yes, I've seen, you apparently have too, seen where just because the show bet is, the pool is a separate pool from the place. Yeah, it's just, it's an oddity. That's usually not the case at all.
No.
Usually the win pays the most, then the place, then the show.
Well, most people like to bet the horse to win.
A lot, yeah, that's a big
But sometimes with a long shot, with a big long shot, say a horse is going off at 150 to 1 or something, you'll get a lot of people, I'll just put $2 on that horse to show.
Right.
Nobody bets it to win.
And nobody to place either.
Or
maybe a few people bet it to win, but place is like the least popular one. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, a few to win and then a lot to show because they, might take a chance and then it pays good. So.
Right. So that's how horse, and the other thing too now is that with some very rare exceptions, the racetrack is guaranteed to make money on all the wagering because they just take their cut out of the pool and then they distribute the pool evenly to all the winners.
Right.
As opposed to sports betting, you're betting on football. Well, if, only people are betting on the Chargers, there's a chance that
if they didn't, and if the odds maker didn't set the
point spread
right initially,
right,
a lot of money could go down and then they could take a bath.
Right. So the casino could actually lose. And the casinos have even taken pretty big losses on big games like the Super Bowl.
Right.
Because of, the way that people bet and the result. But with pari-mutuel wagering, the house is basically guaranteed to win.
Okay, then why are we doing this? Why don't we buy a racetrack?
Yeah, that would be a good idea. We don't have the capital, number one. If we started one on our own, it would be illegal, and we'd probably be mistreating the animals.
All right.
Just like so. That's
those don't seem very compelling reasons to me.
All right, we'll talk. Let's talk after the show. Maybe we can figure something out. Maybe real small scale. Maybe we're thinking too big.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe just a Sega Derby somewhere.
You've got 3 dogs. I've got 2 dogs. Maybe we just invite 20 people over to our house. Just have the dogs
illegal
run around,
dog racing around
the yard. All right. Let's talk about a few more wagers. Another well, this is not a separate bet, but sometimes bettors like to bet a horse across the board. $2 across the board on number 4. Across the board just means you're making a win bet, a place bet, and a show bet. All 3. So when you hear $2 across the board, that's actually 3 separate $2 bets. So the total wager is $6.
This would be a good point, maybe to mention how to place a bet. Because some people might not know how to place a bet. When you go up to the window, what to say. Because there's nothing worse than somebody who gets up there and doesn't know what they're doing, and there's a long line. And the way the track works, if you're at the track live, now there is a lot of online betting in horse racing,
and off-track betting, and automate. You can use machines,
and stuff. But if you're at the window, you need to get up there and make your bets quickly because there's a long line, and they'll take bets up until like, a minute before the race or something, or 30 seconds, whatever it is. So some guy in the back doesn't want to get cut off.
Right. You could get shut out, just like betting a sporting event if, it's tip off and you didn't get your wager in, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, that's true. You typically, and sometimes there are signs up here, but you go up to the window and you tell the clerk there, you say, all right, I'd like $2 to win on number 4. Basically, you tell them the amount first, the type of bet, and the number of the horse that you're betting on.
Right.
You don't give them the name of the horse because they don't have names in front of them. They've just got a little, computer that, right, where they type in the number. So I'd like $2 across the board on number 4. That means you're making, again, 3 $2 bets. $2 to win, $2 to place, $2 to show.
And the clerk will say that's $6, and you pay him and
get
your ticket.
And you get your ticket and you hold on to your ticket. And across the board, why would you do it? I guess there are reasons. If the horse wins, then at least you get a fairly good payoff on your win bet.
Right.
But if the horse comes in third, at least you get a little something.
I see a lot of times people doing it on a heavy favorite. Inevitably, there's one race where there's some horse who's just huge favorite.
Yeah.
And you'll see people go, $10 across the board on, number 3. And, so they're putting out $30 and the horse is going to win, but they figure, well, you'll make a little bit on each bet.
The problem, though, is that if the horse comes in second, they probably lose money on the wager altogether, right? Because a favorite usually doesn't pay very much on a place in the show. But if you're talking about a real big favorite,
right.
Something's going off at like 1 to 5 or something terrible like that, right?
You'll see that. You'll see a lot go off 1 to 2 and stuff like that.
Yeah. But anyway, that's across the board. All right, let's get into more exotic bets. One bet that you can make is called the Quinella. And this is a wager where you try to, where you're betting on who's going to come in first and second place in either order. You don't have to pick the order. So if you thought that the number 2 horse and the number 6 horse were going to come in first and second in some order, you'd make a Quinella bet.
So you'd say, I'd like a $2 Quinella 2-6.
Yep, that's exactly how you'd say it, and they'd know what you mean, right?
And they usually have, sometimes they have $1 Quinellas.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, we should say that. The win place show, typically $2 is the minimum. For the rest of these bets that we're talking about, I think certainly Del Mar.
Yeah.
I can't speak for other tracks, but now it's typically a $1 minimum.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a Quinella. Very simple. You just have to pick the 2 horses that are going to come in first and second, and the order doesn't matter.
Right. And if one of those horses doesn't make it, let's say your one of your horses does win, but the other horse finishes third, you lose.
Right.
Yep. It's not like you get part of it.
Right. They both have to come in first and second in some other order. The next bet is called the Exacta. It's like the Quinella, but you do have to pick the order.
You have to be exact.
Right. So if is that where it comes from?
You have to
I'm
be
just
exact.
Figuring that out now. Huh, interesting. So, you would say, all right, give me $2 Exacta 2-6. You will win only if the number 2 horse comes in first and the number 6 comes in second.
Yeah. Now, what if I want to box them?
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So you might be thinking, what's the difference between betting a $2 Quinella 2-6 and 2 $1 Exacta bets, one on 2-6 and one on 6-2? Well, there's no difference on whether you win or lose. But remember, we were talking about those pools. The Quinella pool is separate from the Exacta pool.
Right. And typically, I think the Exacta pool is bigger.
What you can do before the race goes off, there are boards that will start telling you what if the betting stopped right now, how much Quinellas and Exactas would pay. So you can go to that board and look. Oh, well, the 2-6 Exacta is going to pay this amount. The 6-2 Exacta is going to pay this amount. Compare that to Quinella. And then you can decide which is better.
You want to bet.
Right. But Exacta, it has to be exact. Now you're talking about Exacta boxing. That's where if you box 2 horses for an Exacta, it's just what we talked about.
Right.
2-6, 6-2. An Exacta box on two horses.
Yeah. So you would say, give me a $2 Exacta box 2-6, and you're going to have to pay him $4.
Right.
Because it's a $2 bet on 2-6, $2 bet on 6-2.
Yep. Now, you can box as many horses as you want for an Exacta. So let's say you want to box 3 horses on an Exacta bet. You'd say, okay, I want to do an Exacta box on 2-4-6. So give me a $2 $2 exacta on 2, 4, 6.
So now you've got all the permeations of, 2 and 4, 2 and 6, 6 and 2, 6 and 4, 4 and 6.
And 4 and 2.
And 4 and 2.
Yeah.
Right,
so every possible combination. Right. So those are 6 separate bets.
Correct.
Right? I want an exacta box 2, 4, 6. So if it's a $2 exacta box 2, 4, 6, you got to give
$12 bet.
$12 bet, right? And you could go crazy, betting a 4-horse exacta, 5-horse exacta, but then suddenly it becomes a pretty expensive wager, and you may not make your money back.
Right.
Right.
Well, the other thing you can do is you can wheel horses. So you can take one horse. Let's say you like number 2. You really think number 2 is going to win the race. Mm-hmm. And there's 4 other horses in the race, and you're not sure which one's going to get second. You can wheel that 2 with each one of those horses.
Right. So you would say, give me a $2 exacta wheel on number 2, all the horses, right? Yeah. So that would be 4 separate wagers.
Yeah, 2 and 1, 2 and 3, 2 and 4, 2 and 5.
Right. And so that would be, in our example, it would be an $8 bet, right? It would vary depending on how many horses you wanted to wheel with your winning horse.
Right.
Maybe you don't do the whole field, but, it would depend.
Yeah. Now, you could say, I want a $2 exacta wheel 2 with, and then give him, 5, 8, 9, and 12 if there were 12 horses.
Right. You don't have to wheel the whole field.
Right.
But if you did wheel the whole field, you might be saying, well, why would you want to do an exacta wheel on number 2 when you could just bet number 2 to win? Well, that's a good question. The reason you might want to do it is because whoever comes in second is going to kind of determine how much you get paid out.
Right. If 2's a heavy favorite.
Yeah, if 2's a heavy favorite, but you have no idea who's going to come in second.
Yeah, and you ideally what you want if you're going to wheel it is the second place horse not to be the second favored horse.
Right.
You'd like it to be a long shot.
Right.
And then the exacta would pay better.
Right. So you do a $2 exacta wheel with the number 2 horse. If the second favorite comes in second, maybe you don't win any money. Maybe you lose a little bit. But if a long shot comes in, then maybe you win a lot of money. A lot more than you would if you just bet that favorite to win.
Correct.
In a win bet. Yep. So those are exactas. They even have bets that let you try to pick more of the order. 1, 2, 3.
Right.
That's called a trifecta. When you bet a trifecta, you're determining what horses will come in first, second, and third in order.
And you have to get it in that order.
You have to get it in order.
You can't just pick 3 horses and hope for any order unless you tell them you want to wheel.
Right.
And then you can wheel 3 horses.
Yep.
You can say, I want the $3 trifecta box 1, 2, 5.
On a box, yeah. And then you'd have all combinations.
You'd have all the combinations.
5, right.
If you wanted just a wheel, you could say, I want a wheel number 2 with number 4 and 8. And so what they would do is 2 would have to win, 4 and 8 could come second or third.
Oh,
you can do something like that.
Yeah, sure. I don't know that you'd actually call that a wheel.
Yeah,
but it's more combination. Yeah. But the point is, we're trifecta, you got to pick 1, 2, 3.
Right. And there's a lot of combinations.
Superfecta, you got to pick 1, 2, 3, 4. Good luck.
Interesting because, you're picking a 4th horse.
Yeah.
It's fun.
A horse that doesn't even come in the money.
Yeah, right. Doesn't come in the money. I mean, how many, in any sporting event do you know where you can make a wager on the 4th place team?
Yeah. No,
they don't even give, it's like gold, silver, bronze, and this guy gets pewter. They don't.
And when we say in the money, that's what we're talking about. Win, place, show. That's what we're talking about in the money. First, second, and third, right? That's what they refer to the top 3 finishers in a horse race in the money. Superfecta, you got to pick all 4. All right, there are even some more wagers that cross over separate races. Now, typically a race day at a track is about 10 races.
Yeah, 9 to 10 races.
Well, they have like 12 at Del Mar?
No, they had 9. For many years, they had 9. They went up to 10 last year.
Okay. So around 10, something like that. They have wagers that you can make that cross over races where you have to pick the winner of multiple races. The most common one is the daily double, where you have to pick the winner of 2 consecutive races.
Usually it's like the second and third race.
Something like that.
And then they'll have another one later, the late daily double, they call it. It'll be like the 8th and 9th race or something.
Yeah, so you could have, even though it's called the daily double, they have multiple daily doubles, right, yeah. But it's just picking the first, the winner in 2 races in a row. And it's kind of a fun bet. It's like an exacta in a way,
right?
It's just that,
It's fun and it's not fun. It's not fun when you've got the first race your horse loses. Yeah. You might as well just throw your ticket away, right? It's no good anymore. But your second race, the horse could win, and you're like, oh,
you got nothing.
Yeah. But it's fun when in the first race your horse does win, because in that second race you're like, oh, come on.
Yeah, that's right. And then maybe you can hedge your bet, like a lot of people want to do, which maybe is stupid. But I'm going to win if that horse comes in. I'm going to win really big on the daily double, so maybe I'll bet on some of the other horses, so I win no matter what. But that's the daily double. Now, a lot of tracks also have something called the pick six. Actually, they have all sorts of different numbers: pick 3, pick 4, pick 5, pick 6, pick 7, pick 8, and it's just what it sounds like. You have to pick the winner, consecutive winners of each race, and a pick 6 is 6 races in a row. Yeah. And
now I've seen some interesting tickets, pick 6 tickets.
Yeah,
because a guy like me who doesn't know that much about horse racing and goes, infrequently, if I'm going to do a pick 6, I just pick 6 horses, in the races. It's probably the second through the 7th race or something.
Yeah.
I'll just pick a horse in each race and just take my chances. But a lot of people who are frequent to the racetrack will do like a combo ticket. So they'll have something where, like in the second race, they've got 3 horses.
Right.
And then in the third race, they might have only 2 horses.
Right.
And in each race, they pick a certain amount of horses that they think is going to win that race. Right. And then they wheel them around. They make all the different combinations.
Yep.
And they can do it for as little, I think, as $1.
I think they may still have $1. Yeah, it might be 2, but maybe
I think it's $1. Yeah. So they'll have a ticket. So it won't be like a $1 ticket or a $6 ticket. It'll be like a $58 ticket, right? Because there's 58 combinations of all the horses they pick.
Right.
And you'll see that a lot with people who know what they're doing.
Right, yeah. It is a tough wager to win. It's basically like playing the lottery.
Right.
Certainly if you don't follow horses, it would be, a miracle if you won. And again, this is a giant pool. So if you just pick the favorite in every race, well, if you win, you're probably going to end up splitting it with a bunch of people.
Right.
Because even the people who play it a lot and know what they're doing, they're probably going to have one way where they've picked all the favorites.
Right.
Right.
Sure.
So, the thing is, the payouts can be huge.
The payout can
but
be
not if the
hundreds
favorite
of thousands
wins.
of dollars, or it can be like, $60, right?
Is it that low?
I've
seen it that low?
I've seen it like 100 or something.
Okay. Yeah. So again, it's one big pool. Now, it is so hard to pick all these 6 horses that typically it's not uncommon that on a given race day, nobody will win the pick 6.
Right.
And if that's the case, then all the money in the pool carries over to the next day. So potentially you could get to the point where the pot is so big that it's actually positive EV, I guess, if you knew what you were doing.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious. I'd like to see stats on that and see what the longest carryover is.
Yeah.
I don't think it's as long as we think.
No, probably not.
I think after a couple of days, somebody wins.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's look that up.
I wonder if there's a payout for 5 of the 6.
Oh, yeah. Maybe I don't think so. I don't think so. No, I don't think so. It's not like a lottery ticket. Because I would have remembered seeing, 5 out of 6. No, I think you have to hit all 6. Yeah.
Yeah. I always thought that, but it occurred to me now.
No, you have to hit all 6.
Speaking of hitting all 6.
Yeah.
Just as a sidelight, what's the best horse racing movie you've ever seen?
Well, we've talked about this. I think it's Let It Ride.
Let It Ride.
With Richard Dreyfuss and Terry Garr.
I'm not a big Richard Dreyfuss fan, but he was perfect for that movie. And I highly suggest, if anyone out there has not seen that, rent it sometime. It's a comedy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But you'll be on the floor laughing.
And
it's every gambler's dream.
Yeah,
really.
That's the great thing about it, is if you're a gambler, you'll really enjoy it.
Yeah.
And we did talk about, because one of our very early episodes, we talked about Let It Ride, the table game.
Oh, uh-huh.
And so we wanted to make sure that everybody knew before we started we were talking about the table game. And not the movie.
Not the movie.
Yeah.
Rent the movie. It's worth it.
I need to see that again. I'll have to. I'd like to see it.
I should actually buy that.
You should. Why don't you buy it and then we'll
let
watch.
you use it.
Okay. That sounds good. All right. So that's for horse racing. What else are we missing on horse racing? We told your Willie Shoemaker story. Want to make sure we got that in.
Yeah.
Anything else? It's probably been. I went last year. Our friend Frank, he turned 50, and
right. We went to Frank's birthday.
He held it at the racetrack.
Yeah, that was nice.
This was great. I was every race. I made a wager for him, just a $2 win, and I wasn't picking the favorite. Yeah. And what did I do? I went like 6 for 7.
Yeah, something like that,
or something crazy like that.
I'll tell you what. I'll just say this about horse racing: it's kind of a fun family thing too. I mean, you don't have to be a gambler. I mean, if you're gonna go to Harrah's and play craps with us, you better be into gambling, right?
Yeah, right.
Because that's all we do.
Right.
But, if we're going to go to the racetrack with you, I mean, you can bring your kids. It's a family thing. My kids go at Del Mar. They have a huge infield with all kinds of rides and games and stuff for kids. So the kids can go in there and play.
Yeah.
And you can still bet on the track. And, and kids like watching the horses, and you can go to the paddock and look at the horses.
Right,
and,
yeah.
So it's a fun thing.
Yeah. It's about a half hour between each race.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of time to go get something to eat or, walk around. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not like I said before, I'm not a big horse racing guy, but once a year, twice a year, it's kind of fun to go.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, let's move on to our poker home game segment. This is the segment of the show where we talk about poker games that you would not find in a casino poker room, but that you might play with your buddies when you get together for poker night. And we got an email from listener Craig recently where he was talking about the game 357. It is a guts game. We haven't talked about guts games really on the podcast yet. We've talked about pot games, which this is. But 357 is might be the most popular guts game out there. It seems like when I've gone to home games, new home games, that a lot of people are already familiar with it. Maybe you have to teach it to some of the other players, but people
there's some variations on how to play it.
Oh yeah, there's so many variations.
But yeah, everyone knows the basics, I think.
Yeah. So let's talk about how we play it. And Craig sent the rules as he plays it in his home game. I think it's pretty consistent with the way that we play it. Basically, everybody antes at the beginning. And this is a guts game. You'll see how it works. It's not a traditional poker game with betting and raising and folding and that kind of thing.
You're playing for a pot.
You're playing for a pot, and the pot is generated by everybody anteing. And it's typically you ante a little bit more than your regular ante at the game would be. So if you have like a typical 25-cent ante in your game, maybe you ante $1 to start. Right. So if you had like 8 players, everybody antes $1, so the pot is $8 to start with. Everybody is dealt 3 cards. And on this first round, 3s are wild. 3 cards, 3s are wild. And starting with the player to the dealer's left, that player will say, oh, I'm in or I pass. Right? Mm-hmm. He looks at his cards, thinks, oh, do I have a good enough, hand to beat other players on the table? Right. I'm in or I just pass. And if he passes, it just goes to the next player and all the way around. As soon as somebody says that they're in, the remaining players, again, going left around the table, can decide if they want to challenge him, basically. Compare hands and see who wins. Right? And as you go around the table, let's say, Mike, you say, okay, I'm in. And then action comes around to me and I say, well, I'll take a look at you, Mike. I'll challenge you. We exchange cards. We don't show anybody else at the table, but we look at our hand. We determine who has beaten whom, and whoever loses owes the winner $8.
The pot.
Right. Now, the action continues to go around the table, and maybe another person, Paul, looks and he says, I think I can beat Mike. I'll take a look at Mike also.
He would always look at me anyway because just to
he just likes to beat you. Yeah, that's right. Now, Paul, again, Mike was the one who decided. He was the first one to say, I'm in. So people around the table can challenge him. So Paul would not look at Mark's cards in this example.
Right.
He
would just look
at you. So it's only the person who chose to go in, the first one in, and anybody else at the table can challenge him, including people that have already said, oh, I pass.
Right. Everyone gets one chance to challenge.
Right. So there might be a case where, and we'll talk about strategy in a little bit, where maybe you say, oh, no, I pass. And then somebody goes in and then action comes around to you again and you say, okay, I'll take a look at you.
That is what we call the dog.
Yeah, we call it dogging. And if you had to pick a dog just between, well, who's the biggest dog, do you think, at our game?
Well, Gosh.
It's me.
It's you. I mean, I hate to say that, but yeah, you're the biggest dog.
And I'll tell you why I dog later. Well, we'll talk about it. But the idea is that when the person goes in and says, I'm in, every other person starting to his left has a chance to challenge him. Every other player going around.
I don't know how he worked in dogs into this game, but
I know. God, it's because we talked about dogs earlier, right? The dog racing and everything.
Oh, boy.
And yeah, that's the theme. Now, Craig didn't mention in his email how they play the 3 cards. But typically when we play like 3-card poker in the casino. So in other words, you play with straights and flushes.
Right.
So the ranks would be high card, pair, flush, straight, because a straight beats a flush in 3-card poker.
And the straight flush.
Right. 3 of a kind, straight flush. Right. But there's no reason you couldn't just play it where it's just either you have high card, pair, or 3 of a kind.
Right.
I don't think that's as fun.
Yeah, no, it's nice to have those flushes and stuff.
So 3s are wild. So again, whoever has lost in those challenges owes the winner whatever is in the pot at that moment.
Right.
Okay.
You'll settle up after this portion of the game is concluded, not the 3 cards. But.
Yeah. Now, Craig didn't mention how they do it either. It sounded like maybe in his game that money is exchanged right away.
Well,
that's not the way we play.
Yeah, we usually don't play that way because that gives your hand away for the next.
Well, but when you're talking about we play a different version of guts in our home game. Yeah. In 3-5-7, just because you have a good hand on 3 cards doesn't mean you're going to have a good hand on 5 cards because the wild card's going to change as we talk about
in our
here.
game. We don't have that,
right?
So.
But let's continue with the rules. Let's say somebody goes in and nobody challenges him. Okay, every time that happens, that player gets what's called a leg. You could call it a point or whatever. We call them legs. Craig's game, they call them legs. And you keep track of legs. There are many ways to do it. You can put chips out there. You can use bottle caps. M&Ms, just to keep track of how many legs you have. The idea being that the first person to get to a certain number of legs wins the game, wins the whole pot. And let's see, in Steve's game, or excuse me, Steve, where did that come from?
I don't know. Steve. You have a dog named Steve?
No. In Craig's game, you need 3 legs to win. But we've played where, you need 5 legs or, and the game kind of can, get out of hand.
Yeah, it goes a while.
But 3 is actually a pretty good number. 3 legs to win is the idea.
Yeah, we've even played as little as 2.
Yes,
just to get it over quick.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the 3-card round. Once that round is over, then another 2 cards are dealt to each player. So now each player has 5 cards. Now you're playing just regular 5-card poker, and 5s are wild. Same thing, starting with the player to the dealer's left. Everybody decides, are they going to, go in or not? And once a person has gone in, all the remaining players can check that person off. Mm-hmm. And again, you're always playing for the pot. Finally, 2 cards are dealt to each player again, and now everybody has 7 cards. Now you're playing 5 cards out of 7, just like 7-card stud. You're playing 5 cards out of 7, right. And 7s are wild. Right? Same rules, it goes around. People can go in or challenge somebody who's gone in. Now, in our game, after that 7-card round, that's when we settle up losses, wins and losses.
And you may have to remember, I beat that guy and this guy, but I lost to that one and this one. And
Right. So that's the way we play, because a lot of our guts games, sometimes we don't play 3-5-7 with those wild cards.
Yeah, we typically do not use wild cards, right. But we play it high-low.
Yeah. The game that we play is we call Buckham. Our friend Bill introduced it to us. Yeah. It is so complicated. Once you know the game, it's not bad. But to try to explain, I'll never try to explain it on the podcast.
Oh no, it's way too complicated. There are a lot of rules.
Yeah.
But once you've got it, once you've played a round of it, it's not that hard.
It's not bad.
It'd be very difficult to explain. But there's a lot more nuances. That's why, like I was saying, we can't settle up right away because you're giving away your hand for the next
Right. Well, our game, it is complicated. I mean, think of the times when we've had new players and we've explained it to them, and they really don't get it till we actually start playing and kind of get a feel. We even have some regular players who still haven't gotten the hang of it.
Right, yep.
All right. So that is how 3-5-7 is played. And again, the game ends when somebody finally gets 3 legs and then they win the pot. Now, what makes the game, I think, really interesting and a little scary. I forgot a huge important factor. Once that 7-card round is over, and you've settled up, everybody antes again.
Yeah.
The button moves, and you deal another hand of it.
So the pot's going to grow. So if it was $8 the first time, it's 16 the
16
second.
the next time, right? And then 24. Now in Craig's game, he says they have a cap on the pot, which is not a bad idea because with these guts games, the amount of the pot can get pretty big.
It can get big.
Close to $100.
And it makes you gun shy. It makes you gun shy to go in. It makes you gun shy to challenge a guy.
Right.
So
if you want to keep the game friendly, you might want to say, oh, we're going to cap the pot at $40 or whatever.
I'm against that, but
in our game, I think we've got too many action junkies and nobody's going to go for that. They don't want a cap, even though I think I would like the cap. I know you wouldn't. I know Bill wouldn't.
Dog Boy wants a cap.
Dog Boy wants a cap. We're going to get a t-shirt made with that. What does that mean? Well, guts, that poker game guts. Well, okay. If you've decided that you're going to challenge a guy, but you don't want to go. All right. So the game will end when somebody gets 3 legs. The thing that I think is interesting is, see, if you challenge somebody and you win, or if you go in and somebody challenges you and you win, you already win what's in the pot.
Right.
So how actively should you be trying to get those 3 legs? And this is where dogging comes in.
Well, from my perspective is you want to get those legs if you've got a really good hand. Let's say you're dealt right off the bat, 2 3s and an ace.
Right.
You're going to go in. Just go ahead and get the leg. Don't wait for somebody else to go in and dog them.
Sure.
I'd get a leg when I know I've got a big winner.
Right.
Now, if I've got a marginal hand, then I'm probably not going to be as quick to throw in, but I might challenge somebody.
Yeah.
Depending on the player.
See, this is what I'm talking about. Let's say a player already has 2 legs, right? And he's on the button. And everybody has passed to him. No. He gets to him and he says, okay, yeah, I'll go in.
Hoping to win the game.
And you're sitting there with 3 of a kind. You didn't go in because you don't have any legs.
Right.
And you're thinking,
well, yeah, if you don't have any legs, why would you go in?
Right. What good does a leg get me when maybe, the guy on the button who's trying to win will go in with garbage and then I can dog him and I win the whole pot. Right. I'm going to win the exact amount that he's trying to win.
Right.
And maybe it's up to $40-$50 at that point.
Right. Yeah. No, there's nothing wrong with dogging. It just, it looks bad.
And Bill, he usually calls the guts game that we play here, and I dog him.
He doesn't like
he doesn't like it, but that's part of the game. That's a huge part of the game.
What's funny about that is he does not dog people.
No, he doesn't.
Very seldom.
Yeah, that's true.
Does that?
That's true, and he'll get so mad at me. But see, I don't like the game.
Yeah,
I've told the game, the one that he's come up with. I don't like it, so why don't I play it the way I want to? Get him angry and win a lot of money.
Yeah, you're not playing it poorly. I'll say that you're not playing it poorly.
All right. But that, again, 3, 5, 7, there are a lot of different ways you can play guts. In the past, we played a version where you started with 2 cards, then 3, then 4, then 5, then 6, then 7.
Right.
We played like baseball rules.
Right.
We played, anytime you had an even number of cards, it was low. And when you had a high number of cards or an odd number of cards, it was high.
We've added so many variations.
There are a lot of things, but 3, 5, 7 is definitely the most common. Yeah. Did I leave anything out of the rules? I don't think so. I think we got it covered. But the idea is the game finally ends when you get
right,
the
and it can go quick or slow. I mean, I've seen it where some guy gets boom, 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 3 legs, just like that. Right?
Just gets a monster.
Nobody's got
right.
And then other times, you could be. You might have anteed 6 times. I think we've had it where we've anteed 8, 9, 10 times.
Oh, yeah. They've gotten up to big pots.
Yeah.
Yep. And it is true. It's like suddenly, we don't play with wild cards. And when you're sitting on that final round where you've got 7 cards, you're playing 5 out of 7, and you've got like Broadway straight, ace high straight, it's like, oh.
Yeah, because there's flushes out there.
Yeah, I don't know that I want to go in. It's scary. Anyway, so. But Craig, thanks for sending us the email on 357. And if anybody else has a poker home game that they want to send us and we'll talk about on the show, drop us a line.
I've said this before. I'd like somebody to send us one we haven't heard of.
Well, that King's Roll that we got a few of. That was a new one. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd like to get a few more to add to our repertoire.
Yeah. Email us at youcanbetonThat@gmail.com. And Craig also had a very good suggestion. He wanted me to put together a page that listed all the home games that we've talked about and the episodes that we've talked about them on. Mm-hmm. So I've added that page to our homepage.
Excellent.
youcanbetonThat.com. And on the left-hand side, you'll see it says Poker Home Game episode list, or maybe it just says Poker Home Games. I can't even remember what I put, but you'll see it over on the left side. Just click that link, and it'll take you to the post that I've put on there, and I'll update it every week with when we talk about new games. That's going to do it for this episode. Again, email us with questions, comments at youcanbetonThat@gmail.com. Visit our website. It's youcanbetonThat.com, where you can check our show notes and leave comments. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at YouCanBetOnThat. We're always tweeting, hopefully in advance when we're on our way to a casino. We'd love to see you out there. Mike, I think you've still got what is it?
Well, it was $50, but I think it's going to be $60
See,
now.
This is crazy if you're not coming to see us. Usually it's at Harrah's Ring Con. Yeah. We'll put out we always tweet when we're going to be there. Now Mike's just giving money away. How can you not take advantage of that?
Sometime maybe later this year it'll be at Atlantic City.
That's right. We're talking about an Atlantic City trip. Well, so, if anybody's out in that area, get ready. We have a Facebook page, facebook.com/YouCanBetOnThat. Please review us on iTunes also. We've gotten some nice reviews on there, and it helps us get new listeners.
Very good.
Mike, anything else?
No, I think we covered it. Did we mention dogs at all?
We might. Let's just save that for next time, because I have a lot to say about dogs.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll just have an episode completely devoted to dogs, not even talk about gambling, just talk about how much we love dogs. It'll be a special dog episode.
I've got them from 4 pounds to 150. So.
Do you already have that new dog?
It's coming.
He's getting a Great Dane. So, all right. We'll talk to you next time.
See you later.